The federal government of Nigeria has introduced a 1% presumptive tax on informal businesses as part of broader tax reforms aimed at expanding the tax base and improving transparency in revenue collection. Under the new framework, tax authorities are prohibited from collecting taxes in cash or mounting roadblocks for enforcement, with payments expected to be processed through digital platforms. Businesses with an annual turnover of 12 million naira or less are exempt, while others in the informal sector will pay the flat 1% levy on turnover. Officials say the policy is designed to curb extortion and fragmented taxation practices while bringing millions of informal operators into the formal tax system. To unpack this, I am joined by Martin Arogie, partner, Tax, Regulatory and People Services, KPMG West Africa. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me too.
All right, I guess the ban on cash collections and roadblocks excites you, but do you have concerns about the practicality, looking at how that in itself has become an industry, even though it excites you?
I think for me, I've always been an advocate for, in a sense, trying to bring as many informal businesses as much as possible into the formal tax nets. And it isn't primarily because of tax collection. Now, there's obviously going to be a lack of transparency when you use what we've always had before in terms of cash collection and all of that for informal businesses. But that's not even, so it's not about collection and government's ability to collect taxes. It's primarily for me looking at those small businesses as the real engine room for growth and actual development. Everywhere in the world, the biggest employers of labor are small and medium-scale enterprises. And one of the real reasons why they are able to act as an engine of growth is because of data. Now, if you are outside of the formal tax nets and the amount you pay is just a random cash amount that's determined on a day-to-day basis, there's really little or no incentive to keep actual formalized records that then grants you access to capital, grants you to data that helps you also make right business decisions, and then gives you the ability to scale. So yes, I've always been an advocate for trying as much as possible to move as many SMEs as you can into the formal tax net because of the opportunities it provides them in terms of their ability to scale and then act as real engines of growth for the Nigerian economy. So yes, I'm excited about it.
All right, then looking at the removal of roadblocks and all of those, I mean, when you look at that practically, how will that work? Saying it has become an industry. I mean, you probably want to say that some of those people who are in charge are probably thugs and, things in that regard. So how do you think that's going to be practical,
So what I'll say is that where there is a will, there is always a way. You can't have there is no one who is law unto themselves or who can say that they're bigger than government. So if government is determined to remove those illegal tax collection points across the various informal sectors, then I think it would end. So it's all about political will to actually change things. Like I said at the beginning, there is a large advantage for every one of us if we are able to formalize this process and bring these businesses into the formal tax nets. If we can do that, again, it's not about tax collection, it's not about their ability to collect more or the ability to be able to report more. It's more around how we can provide the right tools for these SMEs to then grow and scale and then begin to act as the real engines of growth, as you would see in any developed or developing economy across the world.
Just so I don't necessarily sound like, the devil's advocate, but we understand that all 36 states have reportedly aligned with this guideline. But many states rely heavily on informal consultants for collection. Now, looking at this, how are we going to manage the political and economic backlash that could come from these displaced actors? Because we also have to look at that. I mean, just if you can say that in less than 30 seconds, then we'll move on to, deeper issues.
Okay, I think I lost you for a bit, so I'm not sure I had the question. Well, in terms of being able to, but I think it was somewhere around being able to manage the political
displaced
fallout
actors. Exactly, the displaced
sorry?
actors. How are you going
Yes.
to manage them at the end of the day when you say, hey guys, you're no longer collecting these things because there is a federal government rule and all of those, and we've all aligned with it? Then what do you do? Wouldn't there be a backlash? How do you expect governments to handle these people? Because you're probably throwing them out of jobs and they never probably had anything before now. So what are they falling back to? Is there a provision to attend to that? So we do not create another problem while we're trying to solve a problem.
So that's the point I've been making. If we do this right, and then SMEs are able to then benefit, because it's not a one it's not a one initiative agenda. It has to be holistic. Once I bring these guys formally into the tax net, I need to also then have incentives that follow, access to capital, because they then have financial information that can then back their ability to also support these loans and stuff like that, low interest loans and stuff like that. So it then creates a platform for them to scale, for them to take up more people from the job market.
I'm afraid, I guess you probably didn't get me. I was talking about the people you would ordinarily call thugs who are in charge of these things, the ones who mount the roadblocks. What happens to them? How are you going to placate them when you take them off the roads? But away from that,
now let's look at more jobs for them, other jobs for them.
What did you say?
So I said it's by providing other opportunities for them. And I'm saying that's why it's a holistic approach. It's not just one policy change that you make. It just has to be holistic. But I think you can, if you do this right, you can find a way to then absorb them into a number of systems around this.
All right, so talk to us about this 1% presumptive tax. What's it about?
Okay, so it's basically a very simple way to determine how much these guys would pay, which would be 1% of their turnover, because it's a lot easier to determine what their turnover is if you keep proper records. It's around sales. How much sales have you made? I don't even need to have an accounting software. If most of my sales are also automated, if I receive most of my proceeds through bank accounts, then it's easier to determine what my turnover is. And therefore, I can then calculate what my 1% is. So it's a simple, straightforward way to be able to determine how much tax these guys should pay. But like I said, it's about also record keeping, because if you don't keep the records, then you can't determine what turnover is, and then you go back to the point where you're then making assumptions. So that's why it has to be holistic.
All right. I mean, the key thing for us here is formalizing the informal sector. Is government leading this, or are the businesses themselves leading this? What has been the conversation? What is going on now? Where are we? Are they aware? Are they, probably being trained on what to do and how to be formalized? Or is this a long journey?
Long journey. And it's something government should lead. But it has to be in conjunction with also the various market associations, business associations, and all of that. I think people need to begin to see the benefits of being formalized in a way. And again, I will come back to the point. You can't just say be formalized just for the sake of being formalized, or come and pay tax just for the sake of paying tax. Yeah, they need to be able to see the benefits, and there are, to my mind, numerous benefits if we do this right.
All right. Thank you so much, Martin Arogie, Partner, Tax, Regulatory and People Services, KPMG West Africa, for your time on the show today.